My husband said, "Oh, Shelby," during the deed. My name isn't Shelby. That's our son's teenage girlfriend. So I set a trap and exposed him in public. 2 years later, he's back, drunk and desperate, and I'm letting the restraining order do the talking. I was making out with my husband one day when things got heated. You know, saliva and mouth, animalistic sounds, the soft touches, and when he opened to say something, I thought he was going to say my name. "Oh, Shelby," he groaned. Shelby is the name of our son's 16-year-old girlfriend. My heart dropped. "Wait, baby, I'm sorry." His tone actually sounded apologetic, like there was a good explanation for what had just happened. I've just been thinking about our son a lot, and I don't think they should be together. By this point, I was so confused that I couldn't even speak. So instead of asking him any follow-up questions, I slept on the couch. And the next morning when I tried to get answers out of him, he told me to stop getting stuck on the past and give me the silent treatment for the rest of the day. So I did what any loving partner would do in that situation. I went through his phone. The first thing I saw on his iMessage screen was a text from Shelby. An awful gut feeling washed over me. I didn't even know they texted. She must have done something really awful. But when I clicked on the chat, I realized my husband was to blame. "I miss sucking on your pee-pee," was the last text she sent. I froze. I didn't even want to keep reading and placed the phone back on his desk. I spent the rest of the week trying to manipulate myself into believing that I misread what I saw, but I didn't. Because the more I looked for evidence, the more evidence I found. He had saved photos of Shelby from her Instagram on his computer. All bikini pics. Ones that zoomed in on her curves. I also looked at his phone during opportune moments and saw more of their interactions. I wish I had never looked. They were filled with mean, horrible things said at my expense, with him constantly comparing me to her. Being with her feels like babysitting a used-up housewife. "Your body makes me realize I've settled," are all things he actually told her. And she responded with laughing emojis. And in a moment of blind rage and heartbreak, I turned our room upside down. I found a thong that I knew wasn't mine, and a used condom shoved under our bed. I reached my palms out in front of my mouth to catch the vomit that came out. It felt like I had drunk one too many tequilas or something, and the last thing I wanted to do was think about it. So instead, I used the skill I learned when I was 4 years old, and my dad was wailing on my mom at the dinner table. Maladaptive daydreaming. In my head, my husband loved me, and we lived in a real-life Disney castle where nothing could ever hurt us. It got to the point that if my husband ever did anything to remind me of Shelby, I would instantly be able to transform my reality until it all came crashing down. I was in the middle of kissing my husband, watching Korn Together on his phone when I saw it, because right in the search history was a description of Shelby. I snapped out of it. Tears were streaming down my face. My husband tried to comfort me, and I let him. "You're such an amazing, protective husband," I said, wide-eyed and in love. He smiled at me like he deserved every bit of praise, like he wasn't destroying our family, like he wasn't a predator. His eyes, those blue eyes I once loved, now looked cold and empty to me. But what he didn't realize was that I wasn't breaking down. I was waking up, and I had him exactly where I wanted him. He thought I was still blind, still living in my fantasy world. He had no idea that his life was about to change forever. I wiped my tears away and smiled back at him. "I'm just emotional tonight," I told him. "Let's go to sleep." That night, while he slept soundly beside me, I made a plan. First thing this morning, I went out and bought a small flash drive. I'm going to start collecting evidence. Screenshots, messages, photos, everything. I found the perfect hiding spot in the vent behind a bookshelf in the spare room. Mark never goes in there. I'm done living in a fantasy. I'm done being manipulated and lied to. I'm done letting this man prey on a child and make a fool out of me. He thinks I'm weak and stupid. He's about to find out how wrong he is. I started my evidence collection methodically. I took screenshots of all their text conversations, making sure to capture the timestamps. I even recorded video of me scrolling through their messages, just in case anyone tried to claim I'd fabricated anything. I saved everything to the flash drive and hid it carefully in the vent. Every night after Mark fell asleep, I'd check his phone again, documenting any new exchanges. It was honestly the most depressing scavenger hunt of my life. Each new message I found felt like another knife in my chest. They were meeting at a motel off Highway 16 whenever Tyler had basketball practice. Mark would tell me he was working late, but he was actually with Shelby. They'd been doing this for almost 3 months. The timeline made me sick. It started when she was still 15. I also started keeping track of Mark's behavior toward me. He was getting colder by the day. At dinner, he barely looked at me. When I asked about his day, he'd give one-word answers and then immediately asked Tyler about basketball. It was like I was slowly disappearing from my own home. One night, I tried to initiate a conversation about our relationship. I asked if everything was okay between us. Mark looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "What are you talking about?" "Everything's fine," he said, not even looking up from his phone. "You seem distant lately," I pressed. That's when he snapped. He threw his phone down on the couch and glared at me. "Jesus, Diane, do you ever stop? Maybe I'm distant because you're constantly hovering and questioning me. Maybe I need some space from your neediness." I just stared at him, shocked by the venom in his voice. This wasn't the man I married. Or maybe it was, and I just hadn't seen it before. "I think you're projecting," he continued, his voice dripping with contempt. "Maybe you're the one cheating. Is that it? Are you sleeping with someone else and trying to put this on me?" Classic gaslighting. I recognized it immediately, but it still hurt. I just walked away, which seemed to piss him off even more. He followed me into the kitchen, still ranting about how I was probably cheating, how I was crazy, how I was ruining our marriage with my paranoia. I just kept washing dishes, not responding, which made him even angrier. He stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. The glass shattered across the floor. A photo from our wedding day. It felt like a sign. The next day, I had to pick up Tyler from school because his car was in the shop. I saw Shelby in the parking lot waiting for her mom. My stomach clenched at the sight of her. She was just a kid. Skinny arms, braces, backpack covered in silly pins. She looked so young, and it made what Mark was doing even more disgusting. Before I could stop myself, I walked over to her. She looked up, surprised to see me. "Hey, Mrs. Williams," she said, her voice nervous. "Is Tyler with you?" "No, I'm just here to pick him up," I said, forcing a smile. "How are you doing, Shelby? Everything okay at home? With school?" She shifted uncomfortably. "Yeah, everything's fine." "Good," I said, still smiling. "You know, if you ever need to talk about anything at all, I'm here. Sometimes young women find themselves in situations they don't know how to handle. Situations with older men, for instance." Her face went pale. She didn't respond. "Just remember," I continued, my voice sweet as honey but my eyes locked on hers, "nothing stays secret forever, especially things that could ruin people's lives." I walked away then, leaving her standing there. I know it was risky, but I wanted to rattle her, plant a seed of fear, let her know that I wasn't as clueless as they thought. When I got home with Tyler, Mark was already there, which was unusual. He was pacing in the kitchen, his face red with anger. As soon as Tyler went upstairs, Mark cornered me. "What did you say to Shelby?" he demanded, his voice low and threatening. So she'd texted him immediately. Interesting. "I just said hello," I replied calmly. "Why? Did she say something else?" "Don't play dumb," he hissed. "Stay away from her. You're embarrassing yourself." I just smiled and walked past him to start dinner. My calm reaction seemed to unnerve him more than if I'd fought back. The next day, I noticed something strange. The mail didn't come. I checked the mailbox 3 times, but it was empty. When I called the post office, they told me all our mail had been redirected to a P.O. box. Mark had done it 2 weeks ago without telling me. That same afternoon, I got an alert that our shared savings account had been closed. When I logged into our bank account, I saw that Mark had transferred all the money, nearly $42,000, to a new account under just his name. He was preparing for something, cutting me off financially, hiding our mail. He must have realized I was onto him and was trying to control the situation conversation. I needed to move faster. I checked our home security system and discovered he'd changed all the passwords. I couldn't access the cameras anymore. Then I found something even more disturbing. A tiny camera hidden in a vent in our bedroom. He was watching me, monitoring my movements in my own home. I left it in place but started being extra careful. I only checked his phone when I knew he was deeply asleep or in the shower. I only accessed my flash drive when I was sure he wasn't home. I started keeping a small bag packed with essentials, some clothes, toiletries, my important documents, and about $500 in cash I'd been saving from grocery money, hidden in my car trunk. One night, I came home late from the grocery store and found Mark at the computer, frantically deleting files. He didn't hear me come in at first. I stood in the doorway, watching as he erased what looked like pictures and messages. When he finally noticed me, he jumped like he'd seen a ghost. Jesus, you scared me, he said, quickly closing the laptop. Sorry, I said, holding up my grocery bags. Just got back from Kroger. They were out of your favorite cereal. He looked at me suspiciously, like he was trying to figure out if I'd seen what he was doing. I kept my face neutral, but inside my heart was racing. He was destroying evidence. I needed to move faster. The next morning, Mark looked terrible. He had dark circles under his eyes and kept drinking coffee like it was water. He'd clearly been up all night, probably deleting more evidence and worrying about what I might know. You look tired, I commented, pouring my own coffee. Didn't you sleep well? I'm fine, he snapped. Then after a pause, have you been going through my things? What things? I asked innocently. My computer, my phone, my stuff. I laughed, trying to sound genuinely confused. Why would I do that? Are you hiding something? No, he said too quickly. But you've been acting weird, sneaking around. I think you're spying on me. I think you're projecting, I said, throwing his own words back at him. Maybe you're the one with something to hide, and that's why you're not sleeping. Guilty conscience keeping you up at night. His face darkened. You're losing it, Diane. Maybe you need to see someone, a therapist or something. Maybe we both should, I suggested. Couples counseling could be good for us. We don't need counseling, he said firmly. We're fine. You're the one with the problem. I just nodded and finished my coffee. Let him think I believed him. Let him think I was the crazy one. That weekend, I made a crucial discovery. I was looking through our family photos on the computer when I found a folder of screenshots. Mark had been taking screenshots of Shelby's Instagram stories, the ones that disappear after 24 hours. But these weren't just any posts. These were from her private account, the one that only her close friends could see. The one Tyler wasn't even allowed to follow because it was just for her girlfriends. How did Mark have access to it? I checked Tyler's phone when he was in the shower and confirmed he couldn't see these posts, which meant Mark had a secret Instagram account that Shelby had added to her close friends list. I dug deeper and found the account. Mike Stevens, 42. A fake name with a profile picture of some random guy's silhouette. The account followed only a handful of people, all teenage girls from Tyler's school, including Shelby. I took screenshots of everything and added them to my flash drive. Then I had a thought. Shelby's parents. Did they know what was happening? Did they have any idea their daughter was involved with a married man twice her age? I found Mrs. Cooper's number in the school directory and called her, using the excuse of planning a surprise party for Tyler and Shelby's 6-month anniversary. During our conversation, I casually asked if Shelby had mentioned spending time with Tyler's dad. With Mark? No. Why would she? Mrs. Cooper sounded genuinely confused. She's always talking about Tyler, but she's never mentioned spending time with his father, so they had no idea. Shelby was lying to her parents too, probably telling them she was with Tyler when she was actually with Mark. The whole thing made me sick. The next day, things took an even darker turn. I went to drive to work and discovered all 4 of my tires had been slashed, not just flat, cut with something sharp. This wasn't random vandalism. This was targeted. I called in sick to work and used Uber to get to a cheap motel a few towns over. I paid cash and used a fake name. I needed space to think, to plan my next move without Mark watching my every breath. While at the motel, I reached out to an old friend from college, Kevin, who worked in digital security. I didn't tell him the whole story about the minor aspect, just that I suspected my husband was having an inappropriate relationship and I needed help gathering evidence. Kevin was horrified and immediately offered to help. He helped me set up a fake email account that looked like it came from Shelby. We sent Mark an email saying Shelby was scared her parents were getting suspicious and she needed to talk to him about what to do. We asked specific questions that would require him to acknowledge their relationship in his response. Mark took the bait. He replied within minutes, telling Shelby not to worry, that they'd been careful and no one suspected anything. He told her to delete their text conversations regularly and to make sure she always used the private browsing mode when messaging him. He even referenced specific times they'd been together, giving me exact dates and locations. I forwarded everything to my real email and added it to my flash drive. Then I contacted a divorce lawyer, not just any lawyer, but one who specialized in cases involving infidelity and abuse. I showed her some of my evidence and she was appalled. She helped me understand my options and what steps I needed to take to protect myself financially and legally. One thing became very clear from our conversation. I couldn't confront Mark alone. He was becoming increasingly unstable and it wasn't safe. The slashed tires proved he was willing to escalate to property damage. What would be next? The lawyer suggested I stay with a friend or family member when I finally served him with divorce papers. She also recommended I have a police escort when I returned to the house to collect my belongings. The severity of her warnings made the situation feel even more real and dangerous. I decided to set a trap. I needed to catch Mark in a way that would leave him no wiggle room, no way to deny what he'd done or twist it around on me. And I needed witnesses, people he couldn't manipulate or threaten into silence. I planned a family dinner for the following weekend, inviting Mark's parents and his sister, along with Tyler. I told everyone it was to celebrate Mark's recent promotion at work. A lie, but a convenient one. Mark seemed suspicious of my sudden desire to host a family gathering, but didn't object. The night before the dinner, I prepared Mark's favorite meal and bought his favorite beer. I wore the dress he always said he liked. I was the perfect doting wife. When he asked what had gotten into me, I told him I'd been doing some thinking and realized I'd been too hard on him lately. I apologized for being suspicious and said I wanted us to have a fresh start. He seemed to buy it. His posture relaxed and he actually smiled at me. A real smile, not the cold one I'd been getting for weeks. He even helped clean up after dinner, something he hadn't done in months. That night, when he was in the shower, I switched his phone with an identical model I'd bought. Kevin had helped me set it up with a screen recording app that would capture everything Mark did on the phone, plus GPS tracking. The real phone, with all its incriminating evidence, went into my secret bag in the car trunk. The next day, as I prepared for the family dinner, Mark was in an unusually good mood. He kept touching me as I cooked, a hand on my waist, a kiss on my neck. It took everything in me not to recoil. I just kept smiling and playing along. His parents arrived first, then his sister with her husband, and finally Tyler came downstairs. Everyone was chatting in the living room while I finished up in the kitchen. Mark was telling some story about a client at work, laughing and animated. He thought he had won. He thought I was broken, submissive, back under his control. He had no idea what was coming. I connected my laptop to the TV, telling everyone I wanted to show them photos from our recent family vacation. But instead of vacation photos, I had queued up the evidence. All of it. The texts, the emails, the Instagram screenshots, the motel receipts, everything. I hit play and watched as Mark's face went from confused to horrified. His mother gasped. His sister covered her mouth. Tyler looked bewildered, then angry as he realized what he was seeing. "What the hell is this?" Mark shouted, lunging for the laptop. But his father, a big man with hands like hammers, grabbed his arm. "Sit down!" His father growled. "Sit down and explain yourself." Mark looked around wildly, like a cornered animal. "She's making this up," he said, pointing at me. "She's crazy. She's been acting paranoid for weeks. She fabricated all of this because she's jealous of how much time I spend with Tyler." But no one was buying it. The evidence was too clear, too specific. There were timestamps timestamps, locations, his own words in black and white. Tyler stood up, his face pale. Is that why Shelby stopped talking to me last week? Were you with my girlfriend? Mark couldn't even look at his son. He just kept repeating that I was lying, that I was crazy, that I had manipulated the evidence. His mother walked over and slapped him hard across the face. The sound echoed in the suddenly silent room. How could you? She whispered, tears streaming down her face. She's a child. She's your son's girlfriend. What is wrong with you? Mark's sister took Tyler by the arm and led him out of the room. I could hear her talking to him softly in the kitchen, probably trying to comfort him. Though what could you possibly say in this situation? Mark turned on me then, his face contorted with rage. You manipulative bitch, he snarled. You planned this whole thing. You set me up. I stayed calm. I didn't say a word. I just watched him break. Watched as the reality of his situation finally hit him. He had lost everything. His son's respect, his parents' love, his marriage, and it was all his own doing. Get out, I finally said, my voice steady. Get out of my house. Your house? He laughed bitterly. This is my house. I paid for it. You're nothing without me. I walked upstairs without responding and returned with his suitcase. I'd packed it the night before, just the essentials, enough to get him through a few days. I've already changed the locks, I lied, knowing I would do it first thing tomorrow. Your lawyer can contact mine about the rest of your things. His father stood up. You're coming with us, Mark. Now. Mark looked around the room, searching for an ally, but found none. Even his mother, who had always defended him, couldn't look at him now. This isn't over, he said to me as his father practically dragged him to the door. Yes, it is, I replied, tossing his suitcase onto the front porch. After they left, I sat down on the stairs and finally let myself cry. Not for Mark, not for our marriage, but for Tyler, for what this would do to him, for the betrayal he'd experienced from both his father and his girlfriend. Tyler's aunt brought him back into the living room. He sat down next to me on the stairs, his young face aged by pain. Did you know? He asked quietly. How long did you know? Not long, I answered honestly. A few weeks. I wanted to be sure before I said anything. I didn't want to hurt you without being absolutely certain. He nodded, staring at his hands. Shelby broke up with me last week. Said she needed space and wasn't ready for a serious relationship. I guess now I know why. I put my arm around him, and to my surprise, he didn't pull away. We sat there together on the stairs, both betrayed by people we loved, both trying to figure out how to move forward. The next day, I filed for a restraining order and had the locks changed. I contacted Shelby's parents and showed them some of the evidence, not the most explicit parts, but enough for them to understand what had happened. They were devastated and immediately pulled Shelby out of school, talking about sending her to live with her grandmother in another state. Mark tried to contact me multiple times, using different numbers when I blocked his. Sometimes he was apologetic, begging for another chance. Other times he was threatening, saying he'd ruin me, take everything in the divorce, make sure Tyler hated me. I documented every call, every text, and sent them straight to my lawyer. Word got out, as it always does in small communities. Someone at the dinner, probably Mark's sister, told someone else, who told someone else. Eventually, it reached Mark's workplace. They let him go, citing a morality clause in his contract. He tried to blame me for that too, saying I'd deliberately ruined his career. The truth is, I didn't have to ruin anything. Mark did that all by himself. It's been 3 weeks since everything blew up. Mark's been staying with his parents, which is honestly the last place I expected him to end up. His mom called me yesterday sounding exhausted. She told me he's been drinking heavily and blaming everyone but himself. Classic Mark. She actually apologized to me, which made me feel weird. Like, it's not her fault her son turned out to be a predator. The divorce proceedings are moving forward. My lawyer, Cassandra, is absolutely ruthless, and I love her for it. She's making sure I get the house and primary custody of Tyler. Mark's lawyer keeps trying to paint me as unstable and paranoid, but all that evidence I collected is working in my favor. Those screenshots and recordings are worth their weight in gold right now. Tyler's been staying with me, but he's so quiet these days. He barely talks, barely eats. I found him sitting alone in the dark living room at 3 a.m. last night, just staring at nothing. When I asked if he was okay, he just shrugged. I don't know how to help him process all this. I scheduled him an appointment with a therapist, but he refused to go. Said he wasn't crazy and didn't need to talk about his feelings with some stranger. I'm not pushing it for now, but I'm worried about him. I ran into Shelby's mom at the grocery store 2 days ago. Talk about awkward. I was in the produce section picking out apples when I looked up, and there she was, staring at me from across a pile of oranges. I froze, not knowing if I should say something or just walk away. She made the decision for me, marching right over with her shopping cart. I want you to know we had no idea, she said, her voice shaking a little. We thought she was with Tyler all those times. I nodded, not really knowing what to say. What do you say to the mother of the girl your husband was grooming? We're sending her to live with my mother in Arizona, she continued. New school, new start, and she's seeing a counselor twice a week. That's good, I managed to say. I'm sorry about all of this. She looked at me for a long moment. You have nothing to be sorry for. You exposed it. You stopped it. Then she just walked away, leaving me standing there holding an apple I no longer wanted. The whole interaction left me feeling drained. I went home and took a long shower, trying to wash away the weirdness of it all. I keep having these moments where the reality of the situation hits me all over again, like my husband was having an affair with a teenager, my son's girlfriend. It still doesn't seem real sometimes. Last Friday, Mark showed up at the house unannounced. I was alone. Tyler was at a friend's place for the night. I heard a car in the driveway and looked out the window to see Mark's BMW pulling in. My heart started racing immediately. I checked that all the doors were locked and grabbed my phone, ready to call 911 if needed. He rang the doorbell about 20 times in a row, then started pounding on the door when I didn't answer. I could see him through the peephole, swaying slightly. He was hammered. I know you're in there, he shouted. Open the door. We need to talk. I stayed completely silent, watching him through the peephole. He looked terrible, unshaven, hair a mess, clothes wrinkled like he'd been sleeping in them. This is still my house, he yelled, kicking the door hard enough to make me jump back. You can't keep me out of my own house. I texted my neighbor Carl, who's a retired cop. He came over within minutes and confronted Mark in the driveway. I watched from the window as Carl basically told Mark to get lost, or he'd call the police and report him for violating the restraining order. Mark finally left, tires screeching as he backed out of the driveway. I thanked Carl with some homemade cookies the next day. He told me to call him anytime, day or night, if Mark showed up again. It's nice to know I have allies in all this. The restraining order is helping, but it's just a piece of paper. It doesn't stop Mark from trying to contact me in other ways. He created new email addresses to get around my blocks. He even sent me flowers at work with a card begging me to talk to him. My coworkers thought it was romantic until I explained the situation. Now they're all super protective, which is sweet, but also a little embarrassing. My boss Marilyn has been surprisingly understanding about everything. I had to take a lot of days off for lawyer meetings and court appearances, but she just patted my shoulder and said, family comes first. I almost cried right there in her office. It's weird how kindness can hit you harder than cruelty sometimes. The hardest part of all this has been watching Tyler struggle. He's not just dealing with his dad's betrayal, but also Shelby's. 2 people he trusted completely, gone from his life in the worst possible way. He's been having nightmares. I hear him yelling in his sleep sometimes, and it breaks my heart. Yesterday, he finally opened up a little. We were eating dinner, just takeout pizza because neither of us felt like cooking, when he suddenly put down his slice and looked at me. Did Dad ever really love us? He asked, his voice smaller than I've heard it since he was a little boy. I had to think about that one. Did Mark love us? Maybe once, in his own way, but love isn't supposed to hurt like this. I think he loves the idea of us, I answered carefully. The perfect wife, the star athlete's son. But real love means respecting people, not just using them. Tyler nodded slowly. slowly. I keep thinking about all the times he came to my games, cheering and acting all proud. Was that fake too? I don't know, honey, I said honestly. I wish I did. He went back to eating his pizza, but something had shifted. He seemed a little lighter, like just asking the question had helped. Last week, I started redecorating the bedroom. I couldn't stand sleeping in the same room where Mark and I had shared a bed for so many years. I bought new furniture, painted the walls a soft blue instead of the beige Mark had insisted on, and got new bedding. I even moved the bed to face the window instead of the door. Small changes, but they help. I found another one of Mark's hidden cameras while I was moving furniture. This one was in a fake smoke detector. I smashed it with a hammer, which felt way better than it probably should have. Then I went through the whole house with a fine-tooth comb and found two more, one in the kitchen and one in the hallway bathroom. All destroyed now. The idea that he was watching me, spying on me in my own home, still makes my skin crawl. Mark's sister Olivia came by yesterday to pick up some of his things. She couldn't look me in the eye at first, just kept apologizing for her brother's behavior. I told her she had nothing to apologize for. She's been great through all this, checking in on Tyler regularly and making sure he knows this isn't his fault. While she was gathering Mark's clothes, she told me something interesting. Apparently, this isn't the first time Mark's been inappropriate with a younger woman. Back in college, he got in trouble for dating a freshman when he was a senior TA in her class. Nothing illegal, but definitely against university policy. His parents paid to make it go away. Olivia only found out because she overheard her parents arguing about it. I should have said something, she said, folding one of Mark's sweaters. Maybe if I had, none of this would have happened. I told her that wasn't her responsibility. Mark made his own choices, but it did make me wonder what else I didn't know about the man I married. The divorce should be finalized in a few months. Mark's fighting it, of course. He's contesting everything. The division of assets, the custody arrangement, even the grounds for divorce. His lawyer keeps trying to argue that there's no proof he actually had physical contact with Shelby, just inappropriate texting, as if that makes it any better. My lawyer says not to worry. The evidence is overwhelming, and judges don't look kindly on men who prey on teenagers. Still, it's draining to keep fighting. Some days I just want it all to be over so I can move on with my life. I've been thinking a lot about what moving on even looks like. I'm 42 years old, starting over after nearly 2 decades of marriage. The thought of dating again terrifies me. How do you trust anyone after something like this? How do you open yourself up to another person when the last one hurt you so badly? For now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life with Tyler. We're figuring out our new normal, just the two of us. We started a tradition of Sunday movie nights, complete with popcorn and candy. Last week, we watched all 3 John Wick movies back to back. Tyler fell asleep during the third one, his head on my shoulder like when he was little. It was the most peaceful I've seen him in weeks. I got a call from Mark's workplace yesterday. His former assistant Winter wanted to let me know that Mark had been bad-mouthing me to everyone who would listen, claiming I set him up and ruined his life. Winter didn't believe him and wanted me to know that most people at the company were on my side. She also mentioned that Mark had a reputation for flirting with the younger female employees, especially the interns. Another red flag I missed. The thing about red flags is they're a lot easier to see when you're not wearing rose-colored glasses. Looking back, there were so many signs. The way Mark would comment on teenage girls' appearances while watching movies, how he always volunteered to drive Tyler and his friends to parties where he knew the girls would be dressed up, his insistence that I was being overprotective when I questioned why Shelby was spending so much time at our house. I should have seen it sooner. Maybe part of me did see it, but didn't want to acknowledge it. It's easier to pretend everything's fine than to admit your life is falling apart. Yesterday, I ran into Steven, an old friend from before I was married. We got coffee and caught up. He's divorced too, has been for a few years. It was nice to talk to someone who understands what it's like to start over. We're meeting for dinner next week, not a date, just friends, but it felt good to make plans for myself. Tyler saw me getting ready to go out for coffee and actually teased me about it. Hot date, mom? He asked, smirking a little. It was the first time I've seen him smile in weeks. Progress. The house feels different now, lighter somehow, despite everything. I realized I'd been holding my breath for years, walking on eggshells around Mark's moods and demands. Now I can breathe. I can play whatever music I want, watch whatever shows interest me, eat dinner at 9 p.m. if I feel like it. Small freedoms, but they matter. I still have the flash drive with all the evidence. I keep it in my purse now, always with me. My lawyer has copies of everything, but I can't bring myself to get rid of the original. It's like a talisman, proof that I'm not crazy, that I didn't imagine any of this. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Mark hadn't slipped up and said Shelby's name that night. Would I have ever discovered the truth? Or would I have continued living in ignorance, thinking my marriage was just going through a rough patch? The thought makes me shudder. I'm sleeping better these days. No more lying awake wondering where Mark is or what he's doing. No more pretending not to notice when he comes home smelling like perfume I don't wear. No more maladaptive daydreaming to escape reality. My reality isn't perfect, but it's mine, and I'm not running from it anymore. Tyler asked me yesterday if we could move, start fresh somewhere new. I told him we'd think about it after the divorce is final. Maybe a change of scenery would be good for both of us. Somewhere without memories of Mark and Shelby around every corner. For now, though, we're reclaiming this house, making new memories to replace the tainted ones. Last night, we ordered Chinese food and ate it straight from the containers while watching a stupid comedy on Netflix. We laughed until our sides hurt. It wasn't a perfect evening, but it was real. And after years of living in a fantasy, real feels pretty damn good.